It's time again for the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast with Dr. John Dentico. The mission of our podcast is to provide 21st century leadership training for a talent-driven world. We help organizations implement strategies and practices designed to attract, hire, engage, and retain top talent while mitigating the effects of burnout. Our guests are experts in various fields of organizational dynamics, including, but not limited to, leadership, management, communication, and coaching. They bring a world of knowledge and solutions to our viewers and listeners. I am sincerely grateful for their participation and ideas. So let's dive in. And if you enjoy our podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. We genuinely appreciate your support. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is Nomi Bachar. Nomi is a trained psychotherapist, keynote speaker, and author, helping individuals and organizations for 30 years. Nomi is the founder and director of the White Cedar Institute for Expanded Living, LLC, and the creator of the highly acclaimed method and program titled Gates of Power. She helps individuals achieve high levels of performance and fulfillment in their personal and professional lives. Her expertise guides and empowers individuals to become expressive, creative, and emotionally liberated so they can reach their full human potential. Nomi Bachar is the author of the acclaimed international best-selling book, Gates of Power, Actualize Your True Self, a practical guide to creating the optimal self. Her second book, Let the Heart Speak, was published in May 2018. Nomi has been globally interviewed on dozens of radio talk shows, such as iTunes, CBS Radio, and Voice of America, and I am pleased to have her here with me today. Hello, Nomi. How are you?
I am quite fabulous.
Great. Let's get started. I'm very curious to ask you some questions. Let me ask you this, Nomi. How would you describe or define the optimal self? That is, what are the attributes, of an emotionally liberated individual?
The optimal self has a lot of facets to it. First of all, everybody wants to be fully expressed as a human being. That's not easy to do because you have to peel a lot of layers of blockages. And so, optimal self is being fully expressed, authentic, self accepting, self respecting, self-sustaining, and supporting individual that goes for the optimization of their talents, their skills, their abilities, their desires, their heartfelt passions, and is quite healthy and balanced in all 7 areas of life. This is my short version. I don't know if I can cover everything, but we are capable of that. I know it's quite a lot, but we're capable of that.
Let me ask you this, Nomi. I'm a very much how does one get there from here?
All right.
To say all those things is great. Believe me, I understand that, and I want nothing more than people to feel that way. But what does the journey look like for a person who wants to become emotionally liberated, if you will? What do they do?
Gates of Power charts that journey. We have a program that people go through for about 3 to 4 years because there's 7 levels to it. But how does one do that? Okay. First, the very basic thing that one has to do is cultivate awareness as to what inside of you is liberated and what inside of you is not liberated. Once you cultivate the awareness, as a therapist, that's the basic level, you start looking at how am I in my own way? What are the layers of repression, limiting beliefs, self deprivation, self shaming? There's a lot there, okay? And we need to look at all of that and start releasing and healing all these layers. This is like a lot of mud on the soul, right? It collects over lifetimes, and you've got to slowly wash it out. So we do that as the beginning level. We learn, and you can stop me because I can talk a lot about these things. We
Go right
learn
ahead.
inside of us, there are three aspects of the self. There is the emotional self, where all the emotions and many times traumas and fears, they all sit there. There is the defensive self, which is our survival self that we cultivate as a way to survive. And then we have our expanded self. That is a drop of divine sitting inside of us. It's the wisdom of us. And I teach people to learn to be in touch with their emotional self so that we can heal whatever painful material sits there, and so on and so forth. People have to be in touch with their defensive self because that's a very oppressive self, because it's so important for the defensive self: survival, safety. We, obviously, as young people, as children, we have to feel safe, so we cultivate this defensive self. But it becomes an armor that sits and weights us down. I just gotta be. I just have to please. I just have to excel. Whatever form of a defensive self you cultivated is a suffocating. We need it, but it needs to be coached. Okay? So it becomes protective and not oppressive. And who does all of that? Healing and coaching your expanded self, your wisdom self. So I am teaching people, first of all, to recognize those different parts and to recognize what is off, what is painful and off in the emotional, what is oppressive and tightening in the defensive. And I'm teaching them to bring forth their expanded self and create that self to be the parent, the therapist, the best friend, the coach, the leader of this little team. I hope I'm explaining it.
No, I think you're doing a good job.
It's not easy.
No, so let me ask you this question. When people come to you for help, when they come to you to go through the gates of power experience, and this is something I learned from my readings and experience in psychology, and that is that people have to be ready, if
Yes.
you will, to be helped.
Yes.
In other words, this is not something you can force onto people who are not ready, as you well know. I know this is right up your alley here.
Right.
So, would you say that the people who come to you are, in fact, ready for help, or do you have to get them across that hump, so to speak?
No, they have to be ready because it's very rigorous program. And I am compassionate and loving, but I'm very demanding because, hey, we don't have time, that much time. And if you want to actualize and optimize, so usually people that come to me, I sit with them for a free consultation. And that's the first thing I find. I say, this is a rigorous program. You're going to have to do homework. You're going to have to learn to meditate. You're going to have to take care of 7 areas of your life. You're going to have to learn a lot. And are you ready? And I say, lovingly, I don't actually work with people who are not ready. Ready, you don't have to know a lot, or sometimes people come to me and they're like, have been in therapy for 17 years and nothing happened. Or people come to me in their 40s or late 30s. But I do have a lot of youngsters, 20s, that are very eager, very bright, and they go for it.
That's
So,
very interesting to me.
yes.
I'm curious to know. There's two questions I have right now. If you were to tell me the percentages in terms of men and women, what's the percentage of men that come to seek your help, and what is the percentage of women? Would you say, generally speaking?
I happen to be very lucky in that I almost have it equal. And the reason is that I train leaders. So a lot leaders of your life and leaders everywhere. So I get a lot of men who are interested in leadership of their life. And obviously, as they come into the program, they have to dig deep and do the work.
Very interesting. I'm also curious to ask you this question because you see a lot of stuff about the Gen Zers and things
Yes.
like that, I'm sure. Are there particular issues that you see repeated over and over again in terms of, you mentioned the 20-year-olds that come to see you? I'm very curious about that population. Do you see things amongst that population that continue to repeat itself?
The truth is that the ones that come to me are a little different in terms of their passion to actualize it, to optimize themselves. I What I see in that generation is going to the quick fix, being addicted to the quick fix, being addicted to the social personas, to the mask. And that's
To
concerning.
so in a sense, to the representation of themselves on social media, so to speak.
Or in anywhere, but that's a quick fix. That's the
Interesting.
tendency.
Interesting. So let me ask you this question now. In your older, let's just say more mature clients,
Yes.
what do you see? Could you group some of the things together that you see maybe in people in their 50s and 60s?
Yes. I What I see is people have worked very hard to achieve certain things, but there is hollowness because they were following what success is. But happiness, fulfillment, and those external measurements of success are not the same. I'm all about success. Success needs to be woven together with fulfillment, with using your talents and passions and being a contribution, and so on and so forth. But I see that disappointment of lack of deeper connection. with self. They have
Ve-
achieved, they have families, they have a certain amount of money, they have a home, they have two cars, whatever. But there is something deep missing.
Missing from their souls, so to speak.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's interesting you should bring that up because many years ago, over 30, maybe 35 years ago, I read a wonderful book called, and I remember it, it was a psychologist. Her name was Jan Halpern, Halpern. Jan Halpern wrote a book called Quiet Desperation, The Truth About Successful Men. And in the book, she goes through a number of stories of her clients whereby they were on the success track. And what she really outlined in her book was what they had to sacrifice in terms of their personal soul, if you will,
Yes,
in order to be successful, in
yes,
order to be the company person.
yes,
And I thought that was it for me at the time. It was an incredible eye opener. You're on that mill. You're on the mill, and you're like the mouse, and you're on that spinning wheel and going and going. And the answer is why? What for? What's
yes,
it all about?
right,
Does it fill my heart? Does it fill my soul? So I absolutely
yeah,
understand where you're coming from. Really, I do. I wanted to ask you another question because it's very curious to me. I am a big fan of Viktor Frankl and his work and man's search for meaning. If you will, the optimistic look at psychology, or as he's been described, the creator of the third Viennese school of psychotherapy, next to Freud and obviously Jung.
yes, yes,
And one of the things he talks about is finding a sense of purpose in your life. So tell me, how do you work with that? How does a sense of purpose play in your work in the gates of power?
it's very important for us. We have the seven gates, the seven facets of life. There's the gate of the body, the gate of emotions, the gate of dialogue, which is relationships, the gate of creative expression, and then the gate of life path, gate of silence, gate of knowledge. In the gate of life path is where purpose sits, because that's your path. That's the journey of your soul in this life. So we ask a lot of questions around that. We dig and we ponder and we meditate. And purpose is something that is deep in the heart, and it changes over time. When you are in your 20s, the purpose might be 40s, 60s, but basically, it's what the soul wants to express, give and take, and learn most. What the soul wants to express, share, and learn most.
Yep. And reflection, experience, and reflection of the experience for me has always been a big thing where you have the quiet time to
Yes,
sit back and think. And I don't know how much thinking is all going on out there,
I
where
know.
people just stop and say, I just need time to think about this. I need to take it all in and think about it and reflect on it. So I'm with you. I understand.
This is why in the gate of silence, we learn about 37 different meditations. And part of everybody's homework is you've got to meditate daily. You've got to take a me time daily to look to see what's happening inside of you. How's your emotional self doing? What's going on with your defensive self? Where is your expanded self going and wanting to go? All these deep questions, yes? You've got to sit quietly at least once a day. I do it twice, in the morning and in the evening. But I say to them, you must sit with yourself in quiet. People don't do that. People are running around. We know, I don't know.
I agree. I think I absolutely agree. I think people are just so on the move. They don't give themselves the time. And I think you would agree with me. Meditation can be done in a lot of different ways. You
Yes,
can sit at a coffee shop with a
yes,
cup of coffee and
yes,
just sit there on a beautiful day
yes,
and just take it all in and reflect and let your mind
yes,
go where it needs to go.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. And you can walk and meditate, and you can do your dishes and be mindful.
that's right.
And you, yeah, but it's nice to just stop, pause.
Let me
You
move
know,
on it.
that
I'm
running
sorry.
around, yeah, I think people are running away from themselves.
I've always thought the best way to characterize it, and I think it affected me many, many years ago when I was young, too. I'll admit that, is that you're running so fast, you don't want your past to catch up to you.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that interesting? You're trying, and I know someone who that was really their modus operandi. They had to keep going as fast as they could
Right.
every single day so their past would not catch up to them, so they wouldn't think about what happened.
Right. That's running away from yourself.
Right. Because to be honest, they had endured a very abusive situation.
Yes.
And whenever they stopped, they had to think about it. And
Yeah.
instead of embracing it and dealing with it, they just tried to run ahead of it all the time.
Right.
So I get it. Let me tell you, I understand where you're coming from. Nomi, I want to ask you this question. We'll see where it takes us. The
Yes.
question is about empowerment.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And this is a bit more on the leadership side of the house, if you will. Okay. It's become a mega word, right? You can't turn a page, you can't scan the internet without running into the word empowerment somewhere, someplace, applied in so many different ways.
Yes.
And if you look up empowerment, the other word that comes with it, and a word we've used for 50 years, is delegation. The idea that there is this delegation from normally from the senior leaders in an organization to the more junior
Oh, I
leaders.
see.
Yeah. And I think people miss. I'd like to get your reaction on this. But people miss the hidden side of empowerment. There's a hidden side. And that is simply stated this way. A person joins a company. Let's say they have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree and maybe 10 or 15 years experience. And I've asked my guests on past podcasts, doesn't it seem like if we use the term delegation as a way to denote transference or movement, isn't it true that a person who has 10 or 15 years of experience and a bachelor's or master's degree, don't they delegate the power of their background, experience, and education to the organization? It goes back the other way. And I think many of them have not even considered this, that there's another flow. We actually have a word for it. We call it subsidiarity. Subsidiarity is the flow of one's power to the organization. I'm curious, again, because empowerment is such a mega word, if you have any reflection on that idea.
Yes, I do. Empowerment means to me that your expanded self is the leader of your inner life and outer life. It's not easy to get there because most people run on emotional or defensive, which are the two more immature selves. Okay? Establishing your wisdom self as your inner leader brings you to true empowerment. And then whoever you are around is being empowered because you are sitting in a place of wisdom, compassion, creativity, enlightenment, so to speak. You know what to do and you know how to do it best. And obviously, you give your best to the organization, but you also are smart to take nourishment from the organization because it should be a two-way street.
Agreed. And the other thing too about empowerment, and look, we've been talking about delegation for 50 years.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happens too often, and I suspect it happens a lot in empowerment too still,
Yeah.
is that senior people in the organization delegate the responsibility to do something
Right.
without delegating the authority, if you will, to carry out that responsibility. I don't know. Have you seen anything like that in your clients?
Oh, yes, yes. And senior people should not throw the responsibility onto somebody else's lap. They should be holding that responsibility, possibly giving some of the authority and the responsibility sharing, but not throwing it, okay, it's yours, goodbye. Where is the leadership there?
In a sense, setting somebody up to fail.
Yeah. And not really cultivating your own true leadership. Leaders always look to see how to better everything around them. You don't just throw and run and go, oh, okay, somebody else. I, I don't believe in that.
No, I agree. I think that you have to make a judgment as a leader as to what responsibility you want to give and the authority, and then be there for them.
Be there for them.
Right.
Yes.
And here's an important thing, I think. If they fail, that's okay. It's all part of a learning dynamic. You're going to
Well,
learn. I'm
right.
going to teach you by mistakes. We
Yes.
can deal with it and we'll work through it and we'll fix it. And if you're able to do that, then you really have this trust building
Right.
dynamic at work.
Yes. 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 Unless somebody is lazy and then you have a talk with them and find out what's going on.
Right.
But
Right.
yes, you cultivate your people, you support them, you teach them.
Let me ask you this as we're getting towards the end, Nomi. All right.
Yes.
What is your hope for people? What is your hope that will happen for a good deal of the young people that you counsel, for the, and I think it's so interesting that you've presented these two dynamics. One, the quick fix, and as people get older, I've achieved so much, but my life is hollow.
Right.
What is your hope between all of that that you would like to see through your work and through Gates of Power? What would you like to see happen there?
Through my work, I see only fantastic things. But my hope for humanity is that people care enough about their own souls to cherish, to cultivate, to heal, to do the best of what God given gifts that they have. You're here for a certain amount of time, and why not go forward take ourselves as forward as we can. That's what I wish for humanity. The people who work with me are doing it. They do it.
And there's another side to this I have to mention, that when you find your purpose, when a person finds their purpose, when a person finds their purpose and their passion and works to be in synchronicity, if you will, with their soul,
Yes.
okay, this is what I have to do, comma, no matter how hard it is, no matter what it takes from me,
Right.
I have to do this. It has to be done.
Yes.
And I think too often people think it's going to be an easy journey when you follow your soul journey.
It's not. And if you get yourself used to the quick fix, you don't have the stamina and the discipline. And that's the problem.
Right. And oftentimes you lose meaning in your life.
Right.
If you're looking for the quick fix, you just don't have this sense of this thing enlivens me. It gives me meaning. It makes me feel alive.
Right.
I know I'm in sync with my soul, my heart. Things are working together. So
Right.
I agree with you. The journey is not easy,
No. And
but
if you're looking for shortcuts and easy fixes, you are not going to get where you need to go.
in life, right?
And
Yeah.
you miss the
It,
whole journey.
yeah, the journey of the soul is hard.
Yes.
It is very hard.
Yes.
But in the end, you have something
To
that
take
doesn't
away
make,
with you, because you're not
yeah.
taking anything other than your soul. You're not taking
And you won't arrive at the age of 50 or 60 and say, my life is hollow.
exactly.
Right. Nomi, I can't thank you enough for being here with me on the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. This has been an incredibly illuminating episode, and I appreciate all your work, all the good work you're doing for people out there. I wish you continued success in the future. Thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you so much, John. You've been a pleasure,
Thank you.
really a pleasure.